Hi everybody, I want to give you a warm welcome back to KKR Clink Clank Radio, where today I will be discussing and critiquing the next album that I've reviewed for my channel. This album is one of the most quintessential albums to be released on this earth. This album, ladies and gentlemen, is hard rock group Guns N' Roses' debut album titled Appetite for Destruction. Here's what the publicly accepted album artwork looks like right here. And then I'm going to show you what the band originally wanted to use, they intended on using, as their album artwork. Now I know you only got a quick glimpse of that. It's quite disturbing, really. I will briefly talk about that album artwork later on in this video, but for now let's get going on this outstanding work of audible art. Appetite for Destruction was unveiled in record stores, you know, when they used to exist. I miss walking into a record store so much. It's a great feeling. It was a great feeling. And this was on a hot and hazy July 21st in the year of 1987 by Geffen Records, reaching gigantic commercial success, topping the Billboard 200. In fact, this album became one of the best-selling albums ever, having sold approximately 28 million records worldwide by 2008. Though currently I've done a little bit of research here. In the year 2013, according to several databases, Appetite for Destruction has reached roughly something like 35 million records sold worldwide. But on the contrary, the album did not reach its level of great success and critical acclaim until a little over a year after its release. Can you imagine? It wasn't until August of 1988 when the album gained its unbelievable breakthrough acclamation. In the first week of its release, it charted only at 182 on the Billboard 200. Shame on you, Billboard, for doing that. Anyway, though, shortly after touring in support of the album and receiving major radio airplay, it was at number 1 for 4 consecutive weeks and was in the Billboard 200 for a total of 147 weeks. So, in essence, Appetite for Destruction has since received retrospective acclaim and is viewed as one of the most greatest albums of all time. Totally agree with you, Rolling Stone magazine. Totally agree with you. Remember when I said this was one of the most quintessential albums of all time? Well, the significant continuation of record sales is proof enough. Though I'd like to further back up that claim. I was crazy enough to have had 3 copies of this record. That's right, 3 copies of Appetite for Destruction. So let me briefly explain. I got my very first copy when I was 14 years old on Christmas Day, and I played that damn CD so much, like constantly on my Sony Walkman on the school bus during 8th and 9th grade. Sadly though, my first copy was stolen from me under my nose by an unknown criminal. Maybe it was someone who still pirates music today. Bastard. So then I bought myself a second copy of Appetite for Destruction, and after playing that CD so damn much and moving it all over the place, it just became all scuffed up, and the majority of the tracks would just skip over themselves. So it was unlistenable. To this day, I still have my third copy in mint condition safe in my arms. Third time's a charm in this case for me. I love you, Appetite for Destruction. Mwah. Probably a lot of germs on that disc. In the end, I'm one of those several fans that helped make this record go to 35 million copies sold. I'm proud of myself. Okay, back to the actual album review. Well, Appetite for Destruction was recorded at 4 separate studios. So we have Rumbo, Take One, The Record Plant, and Can-Am, and these are all in California. And they had producer Mike Clink sort it all out. Wait a second. There's a guy with my last name, but his last name's spelled incorrectly. It's with the C. Or is it not spelled incorrectly? Anyway, the total budget for recording Appetite for Destruction was $370,000. Yikes. And according to original drummer Steven Alder, it only took 6 days to record his drum tracks, whereas lead singer Axl Rose's vocals took much longer, as he insisted on doing them one lyrical line at a time, and a perfectionism that drove the rest of the band away from the studio as he worked. So typical back then, and it's so typical today. He still does that. Well, Saul Hudson, aka Slash, as everyone knows by that alias, not really an alias, I'm kidding, he had trouble finding a guitar sound that he felt would, help reinforce and drive the band's overall style of music. He then shortly stumbled upon a replica of a Gibson Les Paul guitar, and he acquired a Marshall amp, leading down the road to a sweet but gnarly overdriven guitar tone that embodied Appetite for Destruction's overall energy and attitude. And as for bassist Duff McKagan and rhythm guitarist Izzy Stradlin, their recordings took just about the same amount of time as Stephen Alder's tracks. So they saved a lot of time for the band. So now let's briefly talk about that original album artwork, which I will show you once more. Take that in for a little bit. You can also look this up on Google search images. This artwork is based off of Robert Williams, rest in peace, Robin Williams. His painting titled Appetite for Destruction. So Robert Williams' painting pretty much portrays this robotic rapist that's about to be punished by a metal avenger, that really giant red googly thing with the daggers all around the base of its body. So after several music retailers refused to stock the album with that album artwork, the label compromised like they had to and put the controversial cover art inside, and then replacing it with an image depicting a cross and skulls of the 5 band members. So I'd like to proudly introduce to you the 5 band members here.
So you've got Izzy Stradlin here, there's Stephen Alder, Axl Rose, Duff McKagan, and of course, Saul Hudson.
/ The band stated that the original artwork is a symbolic social statement, with the robot representing the industrial system that's raping and polluting our environment. I gotta tell you, that's a very eccentric way of visually representing the negative impact that the industrial companies have on our natural environment. Don't you think? You know what? Too many drugs in one's veins can poorly alter one's perception of reality, kids. So don't do drugs. As for the songs and their overall meanings, well, they touch base on pretty self-explanatory messages, but Axl Rose wrote several phases that just really stand out, especially the way he just belches them, whether he's singing calmly and in subtlety, or when his vocal cords are pretty much orgasm. And you can tell when you hear his vocals have orgasm. Interestingly, though, all vinyl records have a side A and a side B, yet Appetite for Destruction did not do that. They have what's called a G side and an R side. Gun side, Rose's side. You get the gist, right? So the Gun side has the first 6 songs. We've got Welcome to the Jungle, It's So Easy, Night Train, Out to Get Me, Mr. Brownstone, and Paradise City. And these songs deal with the struggles of drug usage and the hardships of life in the big cities. And as for the Roses side, they have the last 6 tracks: My Michelle, Think About You, Sweet Child of Mine, You're Crazy, Anything Goes, and Rocket Queen. And they pretty much contemplate about love, sex, and relationships. Appetite for Destruction, it's one of those albums that doesn't have one bad song on it at all. I mean, each song sounds like it could be a major hit. Like, it's commercial enough to be played on the radio, while simultaneously the songs were composed and written from the hearts and souls of these truly passionate musicians that just live and breathe their music. You could just tell. I mean, these songs are about personal experiences that the original lineup wrote about and expressed aggressively yet beautifully in just 54 minutes. There's no bullshitting involved. This album is definitely one of my deepest treasures in my CD collection that I can always play from time to time, and I can still to this day enjoy it as much as I did the first time hearing it. This is one of those few records that I can hear the bass guitar tracks just clearly. I mean, Duff's lines and the up-tempo melodies, along with Izzy Stradlin's powerful rhythms and his overdubs, merely are the backbone that keeps the band's really tight, groovy grooves locked in, and they sounding pristine, really. On the other hand, this is my opinion, just bear with me, but I think it's Slash's monstrous hard rock riffs and his tasty licks and guitar solos that give this album its exquisite and unique tonality that helped define what 80s rock and metal music was all about. And let's not forget Axl Rose's sound. his varied vocal approaches and how he just further solidifies Guns N' Roses music. He's the one that makes them sound as if these guys have been making music together for many years. Like, he's the one that makes them sound very professional, very tight, to the point. Appetite for Destruction is it pretty much changed the face of rock and roll and the way music, how it's written and performed. Might emphasize just once more that this is one of the most quintessential albums of all music history. Not only just Rolling Stone, but a lot of different forums and other music reviewers out there. To me personally, it's certainly one of the most influential albums that I still listen to when I feel inspired to write my own music. Now it's time to give this album a genuine KKR rating on a 1 to 10 scale. So I've decided that Appetite for Destruction has earned from my subjective review a 9 out of 10. Even though I've had 3 copies of this disc, I still believe this album has its minor flaws like all the greatest records out there have. However, these flaws are certainly not in association with the quality and the songwriting, nor do these flaws have to deal with the instrumental work. No, sorry, they don't. Everything's almost perfect. I give this album a rating of 9 out of 10 instead of a perfect 10 because of the only minor issues that I have with it are some of the lyrical content and the meanings behind a couple of the tracks. To clarify, I mean, I really focus on lyrics too, not just the music. And some of the lyrics from the songs like Think About You and Anything Goes seem a bit too obvious to me. But more importantly, they're just filled with these cliche verses that we've heard so many times in pop music today, and they've been rehashed from other love songs that are just, lackluster and possessing more of these mysterious or cryptic lyrical phrases that are different but more thought-provoking. Like, I'm one of those listeners that likes to grab the lyrics and ones that get my attention. Like, I'm just wondering, I'm just curious, because they're so vague. But it's getting me to process them and come up with my own interpretation. That's all, really. I mean, that's why this album is not a 10 out of 10, nor an 11 out of 10. I have very few albums that I would give an 11 out of 10. But I highly recommend this album to all music lovers, for it's an essential record to have in one's collection. No joking, all joking aside. The standout tracks are obviously the major hit singles we all heard, Welcome to the Jungle, Paradise City, Sweet Child of Mine. By the way, that song was actually written based on a little guitar warm-up that Slash came up with, and then the rest of the band heard it. They jumped in, and they had a jam session, and they wrote the basis of Sweet Child of Mine in just 45 minutes. Holy shit, snacks, man, that's awesome. A power ballad in 45 minutes. One of the best ones. Also, there's Night Train, Mr. Brownson, and My Michelle, which I think are also phenomenal rock anthems, and I've repeated them several times on my iPod. Also, as a fair warning, when you listen to the concluding track, Rocket Queen, get ready to puck up those ears, because Axl Rose went into the recording studio and he recorded himself having sexual intercourse with, back then, Stephen Alder's ex-girlfriend, Adriana Smith, who you can hear moaning in the musical background during the interlude of the song. That's right. Adriana Smith claimed that at the time, Axl Rose pretty much pre-positioned her into making Rocket Queen sound, well, special. In a way turning out to be very vulgar and revealing, yet it's pretty badass in my opinion, if I have the rock and roll perspective. So what are you waiting for? Listen to Appetite for Destruction. Get yourself a copy of this record. Once again, thank you for tuning in to Clink Clank Radio. If anyone has a particular album that you want me to review, leave a comment of the artist name and the album title, and I will give the go-ahead and listen to it, review it, and critique it. Take care, y'all.